They'll get a lot of respect if they win, and if they lose, I don't know if we consider them contenders in the AFC. This is an AFC and NFC battle. The Colts hosting the Packers. Stacey Dales has a key matchup within the game that you need to have your eye on.
Sunday's contest between the Packers and Colts will feature Green Bay's 6th-ranked total offense and a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, of course, that leads the NFL with a roughly 116 passer rating versus Indy's #1 overall ranked defense in the league. While Colts head coach Frank Reich said that Aaron Rodgers gets the ball out faster than any quarterback he's ever seen, the Packers know they'll have their hands full against a defense that Rodgers says makes you go the distance and makes you earn it. Now, his head coach, Matt LaFleur, said they're not necessarily an overly complicated defense, especially on the back end, but what they do, quote, damn well. LaFleur said they play together, they're physical, one of the faster units they'll face this season, and they simply don't give up big plays. But ultimately, Matt LaFleur said it will be critical that his players waste no time when they're out there. He wants them to play fast, vertical, get every yard they can, and maximize every play. A big NFC-AFC showdown between two teams atop their respective divisions on Sunday in Indy.
Yeah, can't wait, Stacey. Kyle, I feel like outside of Carson Wentz and the Eagles being atop the NFC East because it's all drama, like the Indianapolis Colts being on top of their division is the least respected team at the top in the NFL. What would a win over the Packers do for the Colts?
Yeah, least respected, maybe least talked about. I feel like the Colts are outside the club and the velvet rope, and they're trying to get in. And I feel like if they win this game, they're in club talked about. Like, they're here. When you beat Rodgers, he's so famous that he's one of the faces of the league that it's almost like a star-making deal. Like, when the Bucs slap the Packers around, all of a sudden the Bucs defense is incredible. When the Vikings beat him, now Dalvin Cook is the MVP. It's a huge feather in your cap for the Colts team that I don't really think has the classic signature win. You know, I mean, they beat the Titans, but, like, this is a really, really big one. And I'm trying to figure out why no one wants to buy in. And maybe, oh, well, it's the Colts. We've bought into countless Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning Colts teams. The team is well-built. They run. They play D. They have a cool coach. The only thing I keep coming back to is just Rivers. Like, I don't think there's still a huge buy-in factor for Rivers. And I think part of it was week 1. He was really bad against Jacksonville. I think people just kind of tuned out and said, oh, Phil Rivers, he's washed. He's over. I think there's a non-buy-in factor, and Phil Rivers in a blue jersey, no matter what he does every week. But if you beat the guy in the green jersey and wearing number 12, you are in club talked about. You have a private table on those giant Magnum bottles that Nate orders. I think this is a massive, massive transition game for them.
We have a long resume that we're familiar with Phillip Rivers. And that's why we oftentimes will see a great game by him. Really good. There's games where he's been extremely accurate, looking like one of the best quarterbacks in football. But then we'll look back to history and we'll think to ourselves, okay, well, we know there's going to be a game where Phillip Rivers is going to...
It's always so loaded.
Right. He's going to put his team in a bad position. For this game, it's not necessarily about Phillip Rivers for me. It's about that Colts defense up against Aaron Rodgers. It's interesting because the Colts defense is the 4th lowest blitz team. Why is that important? Because they're saying we're going to get pressure with Buckner. We're going to get pressure with Houston. We're going to get pressure with our front guys. And then we're going to make sure that we put guys in windows to make it difficult for Aaron Rodgers. I've always felt like if you give Aaron Rodgers time, he's going to cook you. Now, on the flip side, if you blitz him and he gets the ball out fast, he's going to cook you. So will this be a game where the Colts say, you know what, let's dial up pressure more than we usually do because we're at the bottom 3rd in the NFL? I'm interested to see that matchup between Matt LaFleur and that Colts defense. Who's going to win? Because something has to give.
4 o'clock window, Fox has 2 games, Dallas and Minnesota or Green Bay or Indianapolis. If you had asked the Fox executives back in March last year, all right, Dallas, Minnesota or Green Bay, Indianapolis at Lucas Oil, who are you going with? The whole country's getting this game instead of Dallas, Minnesota. Awesome. So, I mean, you've got Joe Buck and Troy Aikman going into Lucas Oil, probably for the first time since Andrew Luck was the quarterback, maybe even first time since Peyton Manning, to be honest. This is the game. Like, at national television, it's going to be freezing cold all over the East Coast, and everyone's going to be on their couch at 4 o'clock on Sunday watching the Indianapolis Colts led by Bobby Okereke and you know, these guys, Xavier Rhodes. Wait, wasn't he a Viking? Wait a second. I don't know who this player is. Like, no-name defense. Zach Pascal and Naheem
But they're healthy now. Like, he's, you know, now Phillip Rivers has healthy weapons around him. He didn't all year.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be their coming-out party, whether good or bad. Like, they could absolutely do what they did against the Ravens the last time they had a national big game, and They didn't show up on offense, and the defense did their best. But this, to me, is like, all right, if the Colts win and they beat Rodgers and Phillip Rivers puts on a show, we got a cool storyline. We've got Breeze and Brady as these old war horses, but yet Rivers, the one we didn't talk about at all offseason, is the one who's taking the lead. I'm interested to see what we get because Bobby Okereke, I like saying his name, so does Pat McAfee. Bobby Okereke, it's a really good linebacker, and then a lot of good young defenders on that.
They're a really complete team. Like, if I'm a top dog in the AFC, if I'm the Chiefs, you've talked about this with me, Nate, on the show, I don't want to face the Colts. I don't want to face them. And this is now going to, if they win, that's 2 big games that they've strung together, one under the bright lights of Thursday Night Football over the Titans, where Phillip Rivers has looked the best as he has all year with a healthy group of complementary pieces. We're on to something with this Colts team. Question quickly, where's Andrew Luck? Like, how did he fall out? Like, he's off the map completely.
I don't know.
How did he do that?
Yosemite. He's a very famous guy, and he has a famous name.
He doesn't get recognized? Nobody's taking selfies with him?
He's off the grid. He doesn't have a social media.
Think he shaved the beard and that's why?
No,
I
think he grew it out. That's
I just feel like for us to not have some like, oh, I'm in the grocery store.
Haven't seen him. Giant thing with a bike, nothing like that.
I see a Jeff Fisher photo on Twitter once a week. I can't see an Andrew Luck one.
What's going on with the Giants?
Yeah.
There's my second question of the day.
So the Giants had some news yesterday. You might have seen it online or seen it on our network. They fired their offensive line coach, Mark Colombo. The story that first came out was that there was a physical altercation. I've spoken with sources with the Giants. It wasn't a physical altercation, but there certainly was an argument. They were hiring another offensive line coach, Dave he's from the Patriots. They call him Gouge. I can't pronounce his name. Dave Gouge, whatever it is. Great coach, been around forever. He's been bouncing around the league. They hired him to kind of assist. Mark Colombo, the offensive line coach, wasn't as fond of that news. Joe Judge had a debate with him, I would say.
So they fought.
They didn't fight. There was no punches thrown, and yet it was heated. And now their offensive line coach, who after winning 2 straight games, is out the door. But the big story in the NFC...
So there's a rumor that there was fisticuffs?
There was a rumor. There wasn't fisticuffs. But the big story is like Joe Judge, like, firing a coach because of an argument. Like, people are talking that Joe Judge is, like, laying down the line here, and it's a big story in this city. I'm curious to hear what you guys think of what was just discussed.
Well, didn't he have that same type of philosophy when it came to the players? I'm not going to say any guys' names. It's the team over individuals, and if you're not going to do it our way, then it is indeed the highway. I respect it. I don't know what happened, and I'm not taking sides.
Well, they hired someone else to be an assistant offensive line coach, and the offensive line coach was not happy with it. That's really the story. Then he argued, and Judge said, get out of here. Pack your bags.
Okay, so I can appreciate that for one reason. Oftentimes, coaches will say one thing to the players and implement it, and then go by a completely different set of rules with the coaching staff. So you have players seeing dudes come in like a revolving door, and you have chaos upstairs. And let me be very clear. Players know exactly what's going on upstairs. We're like teenage kids.
You knew when coaches were fighting?
Yes, of course we did. We knew what coaches didn't like each other. We knew what coaches hated each other. It's like a 15-year-old kid walking around the house. They may not act like they're listening, but they hear everything. When mommy and daddy's arguing, they know. So the same thing with players. You might sit back, act like we're not paying attention, but of course we know what's going on. I like the fact that he's sticking to his gun and saying, I'm going to lay down the law on the team and on the front office.
Do you have any details? I'd be willing to bet my life that Joe Judge said it's my way or the highway. I would just be willing to bet. There's a lot of stuff that, when the fight rumor came out, which we shouldn't even justify anymore because it was quickly, I was like, he fought Colombo? Like,
big. 6'8".
Colombo's 6'8", 320. Colombo used to be in a heavy metal band with all offensive linemen. Like, he's got a whole history. And I do have to say, Kim Jones had a tweet that, like, was wildfire, where she said, I do believe Colombo called Judge, his boss, one of the dirtiest words in the English language. And then there's 6,000 replies of people trying to guess it, which I have my own guesses, but I won't.
That's lovely for Kim to look at. It's great.
But she says some of them are funny. She's like, he called him Adam Gase? I'm like, all right, that's not funny. I would just say on the football side of things, the Giants are playing really well. So it's almost like if it ain't broke, don't fix it, don't rock the boat. I will be interested to see how the Giants running game comes out this weekend because they got a thing going here and they may have a home playoff game with a new offensive line coach.
How often were there disagreements in your NFL career? Because I feel like but coaches don't get fired every week. That's my point. If I'm a fan and you're telling me that there's fights every week, well,
with the way
I don't like that he got fired.
I would never call for anybody to lose their job. You guys know me. But with the way some teams are playing, maybe coaches should get fired more often. I just like the fact that they got into it. Think about that, Judge versus Colombo. I'd pay-per-view that thing.
Kind of wish it would have.